Hey friends, I am Katie and I am so excited to have you here today. This is a podcast episode all about minimalism and simple living. And we're basically going to go through the basics of what I would consider to be Minimalism 101. So I hope you enjoy this episode and also bear with me as I figure out this new format, a video format. I'm excited about it and I really want to be for lack of a better word, I'm going to use the overused authentic. Like I really do. I want to be really present here. And if you are wondering, I will have a little tidbit at the end about kind of what's been happening with me and give you a little bit more of a life update. But otherwise, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Hey there, minimalists. Today's episode is especially for beginners because it's January. I assume a lot of you are here because of wanting to simplify your life, wanting to practice minimalism, having an overload of extra things in your home from the holidays, and I'm here to hopefully help you. This episode is titled Minimalism 101. Before we get too far into the episode, though, I always like to do a personal update on my goals that I made for the year. This year, I feel pretty ambitious, but I have a very good plan. So we'll see what happens. I mean, I'm open to pretty much anything. I'm open to ditching goals, too. By the way, when I make a goal, it's like, as long as it serves its purpose, it will be on my goal list. But if there comes a point where I'm like, that's not right anymore, I just take it right off of that checklist. So here are a couple of things that I think I did well this last week. First off, I really did a good job, I think, of getting in my 30 minutes of reading a day. I really want to do that, and I don't technically read anymore that much. I mostly do audiobooks because I can listen to an audiobook and I feel like I retain information quite well. But I listen to audiobooks all the time. I just finished David Goggins' Never Finished, I think that's what it's called, and it's so good. It was excellent. It's pretty I would say pretty intense, but a fantastic read. Very motivating, very stoic, and honestly, it was refreshing to me to hear that kind of perspective. Another goal I had this year was to go to PodFest. It's a podcasting conference. It was amazing. You know how sometimes you go to those conferences and you're like, it was good. I learned some stuff, but basically knew what was already happening. This was jam-packed, full of information. The energy was fantastic. The presenters were so real and relatable, like almost 100%, which is something that doesn't always happen, I would say. And I loved that about PodFest. It was so great. But also, and most importantly, I think I got to meet Vanessa Eccles from Fabled Collective. We have been friends for about 8 years. We actually co-wrote a book with Mary Gray and Cami Larson, The Devils You Meet on Christmas Day, which was just like such a fun project and really fun to write some short stories for that analogy or anthology. Analogy. There are analogies in there. Anyway, it was a great experience. We talk all the time. We like Zoom chat every week basically to have a good conversation about life and the spiritual stuff and our podcasts and books and all that sort of thing. But we got to hang out for like 3 or 4 days and it was amazing. So it was great. It was really, really great. And I absolutely loved it. And I'm so grateful I had the experience and I cannot wait to bring the things I learned to this podcast and to my YouTube channel and to my Instagram. Like I'm really, really excited about it. So like I'm doing a video podcast right now. I'm recording video and sound. This is my first time, so it's a little bit of a unique experience. It's got some little bumps. And if you are watching the YouTube video, you can see my dog's ear in the video right now. Like stuff like this, I'm just figuring out. But I want it to be real and I'm excited about it. And I just can't wait to implement those things. I want it to be an authentic experience for you and for me. I want it to be real. So I'm excited about the things that I learned at PodFest, and I feel like it was very freeing and just made me feel more enabled to do this the way I really want to. I'm excited. Another one of my goals is to go on 50 dates with my husband this year, and we actually got a date in yesterday. So that was really nice. Those relationships make life so meaningful, and it feels like it's really easy to get distracted in this age of technology. There's so much stuff around and it's beautiful. Like it's so powerful and it can make our lives easier, but it can also numb us out and make us less attached to those really deep and important connections in our life. So taking those moments and having those goals to really just connect more deeply. I don't really know how else to say it, but to nurture those relationships. It feels important. So that was a fun goal to create for this year. And honestly, if you haven't made your goals yet, throw some goals in like that are fun. Like it doesn't all have to be like boring or overwhelming. You can have fun goals. It's totally okay. I give you permission if you needed it. And I would say that's what I did with my extra time that minimalism has provided for me and the way that I have simplified my life. And it feels really good. Diving into the episode though, I want to reintroduce the topic. It's called Minimalism 101. It's like basics of minimalism. And this is not necessarily a how to declutter episode. It's more philosophical, I would say. But I think we have to start there. I don't think it works very well if you don't understand certain aspects of your motivation. And so that's really what I want to talk about today. And one of the first things I want to talk about is finding your why. It's actually so important to understand why you're doing this, what is going to keep you at it. And it can't just be like, I want to have less stuff. You really need to go a little bit deeper than that. And that could be a good starting point. Like, I'm not shaming that, but I think that deepening that understanding of why you really want to practice minimalism is very helpful as you go. I guess one of the first things I want to talk about is my minimalistic philosophy. Basically, I think that each person needs to discover and practice minimalism in the way that feels best to them. A magazine cover with a white wall and a single chair may not be your kind of minimalism. It might be perfect for you, though, to have so much simplicity in your home that it's almost bare. That might feel really good to you. It might be where you are right now. Either way, it's up to you. Like, you have to discover that and figure out, what do you really, really want? I believe that everyone is kind of like on a minimalistic spectrum, and some people would really only want to practice it maybe on their schedule or in their living room or in one little aspect of their life, and that's where they want to practice minimalism. And then there are people that are like, I'm all in every single thing. I want it all. I want the emotional minimalism. I want the mental minimalism. I want this calendar. I want to make sure that every single room and closet and nook and cranny in my house, in my yard, my garage, I want it all. And that is great. Like, I feel like I've gone more to the extreme of I want it everywhere. But there are some areas where I'm like, I have children. I have teenage children. And I have a husband that definitely loves to practice minimalism. But I think our view of it is a little bit different too. So I think it gets a little bit more complicated when you start looking at aspects like that where you have variables. And I think that's also where you have to give yourself grace for that. You can't just expect something that's not possible for it to be your reality without perhaps damaging relationships that are actually very important to you. I think that's one of the reasons why it's very important to perhaps even visualize and practice some visualization in your home and maybe for your lifestyle, to decide, like, what would I actually want my home, my lifestyle to be like if I could practice minimalism the way that I want. You might be surprised to find that there are some areas where you're like, actually, I thought it was important to me, but it's really not. Or this is really important to me when I didn't really think it would be. And it might be that some aspect of minimalism is what you've actually been looking for the whole time, but you didn't realize that that was the one thing that was bothering you. So taking an opportunity to really visualize, like, I would spend time going into one of your rooms, closing your eyes, getting comfortable. I'm a breathwork facilitator, so of course I'm going to say, like, pay attention to your lungs and how they're breathing and things like that. And I would pay attention to what that feels like. And then imagine, like, what would it be like if you had the ideal schedule? What would that entail? Also, what would it be like to open your closet? How would you like to find it? Are you okay with the way that it is, or would you prefer it to be a little bit different? What about your space? What about your home? Even what about your car? What about your purse or your wallet? Like, these are all things that we can go into and visualize. You just need to spend some time doing it so that you can figure out what actually matters to you the most. You might be really surprised at what comes to mind if you turn on some like yoga or meditation music, pull out a journal, and do that meditation. Think about it. Allow your mind to just really relax into what you would truly like, and allow yourself to be honest, and allow yourself to deeply engage with that vision, and then write it down in your journal. I would strongly recommend writing it down in your journal, or even like just on a random piece of paper on your phone. I don't know. Like, I'm starting to really find that my phone, as soon as I open it, is so full of distraction. I don't really get a lot of deep work done when I'm on my phone, unless it's in a very determined and specific way. So I would personally recommend like a piece of paper, but maybe you're not a piece of paper kind of person. That's okay too. But having that time to be honest and figure out, what do you really want? What is your end goal? I think is so important. And you'll come up with the most beautiful version of what you'd like. And keep in mind, it will probably change, and that's okay too. But it's a good starting point, and it will give you a good place to begin being motivated. I think from there, you can really determine, where is this motivation coming from? What are the things that are most important to me? Why do you want your home and your schedule to look like this? Why would it feel so good to have a space like that? What do you want to do with that space? What would be important to you? If your home were suddenly just the way you wanted it to be, do you just want to feel more comfortable there? Are you excited to have friends over? Would you love to have more family over? Do you want to host a book club? Are you excited just to know like it's good and peaceful when you return from work, and it's just set up to help you relax and provide for you that nourishment that you need and the replenishment that you need after work? Maybe that's your goal, but starting to find out those kinds of reasonings and that kind of motivation, I think, is very, very important. I would do the same thing with, why do you want to have more time on your hands? Because often we find with minimalism, you start saying no to stuff, you start saying no to activities, and that means you have more time on your hands. And the best way to deal with that is by replacing it with good stuff, because otherwise more things will come in to your life that you really don't want. And you'll find likely that you've said no to some things in order to say yes to things that you really are not interested in. So having a plan for replacing in your schedule what you really want, I think, is very important. And it's also very motivating to move forward with that mindset of, I need to stop saying no to things that I'm really not interested in, so that I can have space for this thing that I really want. The next thing I want to talk about is like just practical, how to start decluttering. So basically what you need to do in this space, in my opinion, is don't start with the whole house. Please don't. It could be a giant, well, for me, it was a giant disaster. And so I'm just speaking from my experience. But basically what I did when I first realized like, oh, minimalism is the way, I know it's going to really help me to have a more simple life, this is what I'm going to do. Keep in mind, I had 2 toddlers, and that was exciting to try to practice minimalism in that space, but it was desperately needed because we had so much stuff from all of us, and we were living in a very, very small home. So basically what I did was I tried to practice minimalism. I just started going through random things, and I would see something and be like, I'm getting rid of this or whatever. And like, granted, some of that was fine, but what I learned is that I became overwhelmed and I could see 0 results. That was so frustrating. It was incredibly frustrating to me. So what I decided to do is I realized I needed to move from space to space. So I started out with like a cubby, a closet. It was not the whole house. I took a specific space and started to work. Seeing these results this way was way better. It was so good. So I would move from space to space, and I like literally, I would say, I'm going to declutter this drawer, and then the next one, and the next one in this dresser, and then the dresser will be done. I didn't even say I'm going to declutter this room. I was like, I'm going to declutter this thing, this one teeny tiny space. But the awesome thing about it is when you open that drawer, you're like, oh, look at that drawer. It looks so nice. It's pretty. And you want to keep it that way. And you kind of get protective of those spaces that you work for to clean up. If you have other people sharing the space with you, you're like, hey, I cleaned that up. Can you please put it back the way you found it? Like, sometimes I come out sassy. Sometimes I come out really nice, but you feel a protection over it because you want it. You spent the energy and the time taking care of it. You want to keep it that way. And I think that's so beautiful to like honor that you did that work, and it's okay to protect those spaces. You don't want to have to do it over and over again. That's not the point. The point is to go from space to space and make it beautiful. But what I have noticed is that my family recognizes and feels the good energy of me practicing this type of minimalism, and they generally want to keep it nice too. So you will probably find a combo of that is unique to you in your home, but for you and yourself, as you put in that effort, you'll open those drawers or you'll open that closet and be like, looks so nice. That's, I think, a pretty general response to beginning to practice minimalism. So that was the first home that I practiced minimalism in, and it took a lot of work, but it turned out beautiful. We then moved, and I felt like we pretty much practiced minimalism there too, but we moved into a much bigger home. And then the home we moved into after that was even bigger. When I decluttered that third home, I was like, wow, things have gotten out of control, which this is something like that we have to recognize. Minimalism is a journey. It's not a weekend job. It's just not. Sometimes it can be done in a weekend, but these are supposed to be practices well, not supposed to be. I don't want to say that for you, but for me, I wanted this to become a life practice, like something that I continuously addressed, worked on, recognized, and implemented. So basically, when we got into that third house and we were prepping, we were actually going to flip that home, and we were prepping it and repairing it and doing all this stuff, I realized that a huge part of that was that I didn't want to move out of that home, put everything into our storage unit. This is when we were going to move into our motorhome. And so I didn't want everything going into a storage unit. So I really wanted to declutter. I knew we would probably need 2 storage units for everything in our house to go in if I didn't do that. So I worked tirelessly, but I remembered my personal methods of decluttering, and I started with one space first. I started with my closet, and I started with the bottom shelf, the next shelf, until the whole closet was done. Then I moved into the kitchen, and I worked from cupboard to cupboard to cupboard until that whole space was done. And at that point, like, my family was beginning to work on their own things. I was helping direct my children, and my kids were like elementary school aged, so they were much better able to help and also work through their own stuff, which was really nice to be able to process some of that stuff with them. And it was, I think it's a life skill to know what is valuable to keep and to let go of, and also to process the emotions that go along with those items, because I don't care what anybody says, physical items have emotional attachments. Almost every single one of them does. And so I think it's important to learn how to deal with that. And it was a good opportunity for me to show my children my method of how I honor things, how I let go of things, and figuring out what has value. So that was a really, really good process. And the whole house came together beautifully, and we just needed one storage unit, and it wasn't even the biggest one. It was really good. I will likely do another episode on kind of like decluttering, like deep decluttering, and my methods for that. But for right now, I think I'm just going to leave it at that and move on to the next topic. But I did want to share with you that the process can be really simple. I would definitely have something that like can contain garbage, something that contains things for donations, and something that's like a basket that will help you to take things that are just misplaced and put them back into the rest of the, take them back home. If you have a pair of socks that belongs to someone else that lives in your house, like put that in the basket and then, take it off to where it actually goes. And I think that method works quite well. And just do your best. Donations are so hard if you don't have an easy way to get them off to someone. The place that I love to donate to the best, it has really weird hours. It's so easy once I do it, but it has weird hours and I always forget them. So donations stick around longer than I would like for them to. But basically, just try to have a good system for those things, and having a way to just get rid of things, and then having a way to like disperse the things back to their homes in your home. That's a good thing. A huge way to impact your home is actually to just stop buying stuff. Stop bringing things in that you don't need. Stop bringing in things that, like, someone's like, hey, I got this bag of stuff. Do you want it? No, you don't want it. You really don't. When you're trying to minimize things, it is so hard. And I would set the standard extremely high for what you actually will allow yourself to say yes to, because things wear out. They have to be discarded. And there are consumable items. There are things that you're like, okay, I don't need this anymore. If you start practicing that stuff, it's just naturally going to occur that you have less items. But if you continue to bring stuff into your home and you keep on saying yes, as things wear out and need to be discarded, you'll just keep on bringing things in. So you're like, there's no change in the volume of or number of items in your home. It's just going to remain the same. And that's a problem if you're trying to practice minimalism and trying to diminish the amount of things that you have. I think this is where we have to have a high standard for what are we going to bring in. So let's say you need a new desk. Don't say yes to the first one that comes your way, or like, oh yeah, that'll do. Actually try your best to be patient and figure out like, well, what do I actually need? How many drawers do I need? Do I need any drawers? Do I just want it to be really simple? Do I just need a desktop to write on? Having kind of becoming a picky person. And also think about style. What kind of energy do you want to bring into your home? What do you want it to look like? What do you want it to feel like? I think that's a good thing. It's okay to be picky. It's okay to wait and say, no, I know what I want. I'm going to wait for it. Also make sure it's within your budget and try your best to be patient and wait instead of doing what you've done previously. Likely, this is what I did anyway. I would just say, well, this will do for now, or I really, really want to fill the space now, or I really want to have this thing now. So I'll just get whatever works for right now, and then I'll get a new thing later. First of all, that creates a lot of waste, and it's not likely that thing will be satisfying anyway. And then the other thing is you're going to quickly realize its shortcomings, and you're not satisfied with it. You're not going to enjoy it as much as you would if you waited and got the thing you really, really want. This is an area where I am super impatient. This is for me. I do not do well with this one, or have not historically done well with this one. But I've worked on it, I've practiced it, and I've gotten so much better to the point where I'm like, I don't care. My walls have like nothing on them in my living room. And it's because I'm waiting for just the right thing, and I know what I want, and it's not the right time, and that's fine. Like, I'm just going to leave it the way it is until it's exactly what I want it to be. I'm okay with that. It's not always ideal. Sometimes you have to just get something that will work for now, because like you can't sit on the floor. So you just have to get a couch, and maybe the couch you really, really want is way outside of your budget. So you're just going to get a filler for now. And sometimes it's okay, but just be aware of that one, because it can be a trap. It can be trapped to bring in stuff and create waste that you just really don't want to contribute to anyway. There are two other ways that I kind of am able to filter out things that I think I really want, but then I don't actually want. First of all, I usually set a waiting period. I'm like, I think I want this, but I'm going to wait a month or a week or 6 months. And if I still want it, then I'll get it. And I think that's contributed to learning how to be a more patient person, honestly. And you'd also be surprised at how many things you're like, I have to have that right now. And then you're like, yeah, I didn't need that at all or want that at all. And I'm really glad I didn't buy it. The other thing that I implement is, this is especially if I'm in a like downsizing phase, because I think there are phases where we can just like float, and naturally we accrue some things as well as let go of some things. But there are times when our possessions, like, they become unbalanced. And so we have to go through a stage of like getting rid of stuff again, decluttering again. So when I'm in a decluttering phase, if I want to bring something into the house, I set a rule for myself, whatever number this is, but I'm like, nah, if I bring that in, I have to get rid of 2 things. And it almost doesn't matter like if it's the same volume, except for the fact that you do want to make sure that the things you bring into your home have like their own home. They have to have a space that's dedicated to the item. Other than that though, like if you just make sure that you have that transaction and that personal agreement, I think it's really important to keep those commitments to ourselves. So if you say, well, if I get rid of this, I'm getting rid of that item so that I can bring into my life and receive the thing that I really want. I think it actually makes it more meaningful to bring stuff into your home when you have a system where you're like, yeah, I can't bring that in unless I get rid of 2 things or 5 things or at least 1 thing. That way your numbers are still going in the direction that you want them to, whatever phase you're in. Another aspect of minimalism that I think is really important is it's important to make it fun. And I'm actually going to talk about this more, but I think that sometimes people feel like they're giving up a lot and it actually becomes an issue for them because they haven't spent enough time making it fun. It feels like you're just letting go of all of your little treasures that you've collected and or saying no to things that maybe you kind of wanted to do, but you know it's really not for you and you should have said yes to that in the first place. I think sometimes people forget that they can have fun and it's okay. And you're totally permissioned to have a good time. It's like with your goals, like make fun goals. Even if you don't want to make a checklist of items that are kind of traditional or whatever, what goals can you make that would be super fun, that you would enjoy fulfilling? Like you could totally do that if you want to. It's up to you. And I think with minimalism, it's really important to remember it's okay to have a good time. We can turn on music when we declutter. We can also limit the amount of time that we spend decluttering. We can say, hey, I can only hack this for like 15 minutes. So I'm going to set a timer. And when it goes off, I'm done. Or I'm going to get rid of 15 items. And then after I've done that, I'm going to take care of it and put it in the designated areas or discard it or whatever needs to be done with it. But then I'm going to go on a walk because these 15 things means that I've earned a walk. So give yourself rewards, give yourself a reward as you go. And I think it makes it a lot better of an experience. I think sometimes people have a tricky time with the reward thing because a lot of us, the only things we can think of for rewards would be like physical items or food or things like that. So it's a good opportunity to learn how to get creative. How can you enjoy and reward your minimalistic practices? Can you sign up for a yoga class or a sound bath? Or would you like to go on a hike? Would you like to go on a picnic? Would you like to have tea with a friend? Would you like just to take a nap? That would be very, very nice. There are so many things that you can do that are not they're not an actual physical item that you bring into your home. And maybe some of those physical items would be a yes for you and would be a good reward for you. That's totally possible. Maybe if you need to declutter your whole space, maybe your home is really not updated. Maybe your reward is, as I declutter each space, I get to kind of update each space. And that would be a really beautiful and fun thing to do. And it would beautify your home. It would be of benefit. So whatever you do, just enjoy that aspect of it. I think it's really, really important. And always turn on the music, turn on the audiobook. Do those little simple things that kind of can be put on in the background while you work that also make it really enjoyable and pleasant for you. You can reward yourself and not turning it into a shameful experience. I think that's what happens to people sometimes. I think that sometimes it turns into just self-shaming. The internal thoughts might be, I can't believe my home got like this. Why did I ever buy this? It was stupid of me. Why would I have spent so much money? What a waste. These kinds of negative things are really not good for us. The thing to do in this situation is lovingly learn from our lesson if we need to. I know when I first started decluttering, we were having a difficult financial time and it was really hard to not just kind of trash myself and berate myself for having spent money on things that we really didn't need, because it would have been a financial benefit to our family to have not spent that money. But I remember I was in Target one time and I was grabbing something I needed. It made me realize that I had learned from it and it was okay. And what I was bringing home that day was essential and it was stuff that we needed. And it removed the shame. Shame is not going to help you in this situation. It's again, it can help us to learn if we really are honest and we inspect what we're doing, what our actions are. I just think you have to do it in a loving way where you're like, okay, yeah, that probably wasn't the best decision, but this is how I'm going to move forward. And I think that when we make it fun and emotionally rewarding, or we allow ourselves to deepen connections with our newfound time, I think that is actually of a greater benefit. And I think you will see better results that way. The last thing I want to talk about is, remember, this is a journey. It's not like you might be able to, if your home is small, maybe in a weekend you could declutter all the things that you think you need to declutter. But what I learned is that it's such a process, and the things you think you want to get rid of, most likely, most of those items are good to go. But there's so much more that as you go along, you will also be ready to let go of. And there are some sentimental items that you probably shouldn't let go of. And I know that's controversial in the minimalist world, but I'm going to say it, and I'm going to do a podcast episode on that, because I feel like there are some things you don't need to release from your life. You just need to find a better way to keep them in your life. And I'm really going to talk about that. But I would recommend, if you're a beginner, and again, this is Minimalism 101, so we're going back to the basics here, get rid of the things that are easy to get rid of first. The holy socks. You're done with those. Like, do you really want your toe sticking out of that sock, or to feel that hole under your, like the ball of your foot all day long? No. If you can replace them, get rid of those holy socks, my friend. You'll feel better. Like things like that. It's time to go. The old paperwork that you don't need anymore, you are positive you don't need it anymore. Get rid of that stuff. There are just things in your home that it's like, just let it go, release it, and release the things that are easy. The things you know that you've hated having in your house, that have been annoying you, that are hindering your lifestyle or your space or the energy in your space. Just let go of those things first. And I would recommend, like, probably create like a box, or use a box that you already have and put in there sentimental items so that they can be out of the space that you're decluttering, but you can address them later in a loving way, in a very centered way, so that you do it the right way. I guess that's what I really want to say. There was a lot of ways, but that's basically what it is. Like, put it aside so you can deal with it properly later. I always have a minimalist challenge. So a minimalist challenge for you today is to decide a space in your home that you want to declutter. And this can be a whole room this time, but it can also be smaller if you'd like to. Have it be a smaller, just like a small space, like a dresser or closet or something like that. But go into that space and imagine it as you really would love for it to be. Imagine every single detail. Imagine what it would be like if you opened up the closet and you saw it so beautiful. Imagine what it would be like to have your furniture placed just the way you would want it to be. Imagine every single detail of that space, and then just take a moment to journal about it and go into the whys and the motivation. What about that space? Like the way it would be in an ideal situation. If you could snap your fingers and that's exactly how it would be, that's what you want to journal about. I think that will give you answers as to what you actually want, especially if you're honest with yourself, and hold on to that motivation and that why. I really think that this is a great practice. You can do this over and over again. I do this in my home like frequently. Like anytime I realize we need to go into a decluttering phase, that's exactly what I do. I'm like, well, what do I not like about this space? What's bothering me about it? Is it the energy? Is it the stuff? What do I need to do? I think it's really helpful. After you have done your journaling, after you've done your kind of like, I don't know, vision casting, after you've imagined your space, go and make a plan. Decide where you're going to start first, and then try to declutter 10 items. Or tidy up that one first little drawer or whatever it is. Like, get started on it. Maybe you want to set a timer and spend like 5 minutes on it. Whatever it is, get started. Don't wait. thank you so much for joining me on this podcast. I hope that you enjoyed it today. I hope that even if you've been a minimalist for a long time, that you still got something out of it. And I hope that if you are a beginner, that it was helpful to you. Stick around because I will have a lot more episodes that go into depth on different topics of minimalism and simple living. But for now, thank you so much for joining me. And remember, it's all about the experiences, not the stuff. That being said, I really wanted to finish up this video with a little personal update. I didn't feel like it was appropriate at the beginning because, again, this is Minimalism 101, and I'm hoping that it will help others to find this that have not been haven't seen any videos on my channel so far. So basically, I haven't been posting on here and I have missed it desperately, but I haven't found a good way to fit it into my life. This is not the only format. I'm still plant-based and that has a whole story to it as well. But I have learned so much the last 2 years. I have experienced a lot. Things have changed. Things have come back. There's, life. A lot happens in 2 years. And that's basically how long, it's actually been 2.5 years since I was posting with any regularity on this channel. So I won't just be posting about these minimalism topics. I will definitely be including plant-based stuff and how I make that practical and lifestyle stuff because I think that was generally enjoyable. We also moved. We moved to Utah and I can't remember if I posted. No, I did. I do have some videos on there. Sorry. I couldn't remember if I'd posted any videos in our new home, but yeah, our new home is kind of coming together and it's a great place to live. We're really happy here. So I would love to talk more about those types of things, the minimalism, the lifestyle, the plant-based stuff, but I'm also a breathwork facilitator now, and that's something that has been so near and dear to my heart, and I want to incorporate that because it's such an important part of my life, and it has helped me just to bring it all back after having kind of a mess of my life for a while. It's been a journey, I tell you what. So I want to share more about that, and this video is probably not the time and the place to do it, but all of those things, they're really important to me, and I'm excited to share. This video format of the podcast is definitely something I'm going to be posting every week, but in the coming weeks, I will also be this is where I'm going to start with getting back onto YouTube, but in the coming weeks, I have one big project that needs to be completed. Once that is done, I'm going to start making videos here again, and I've learned so much, and I'm excited to implement it to make it easier to present these things. I can't tell you how many videos, I have filmed so many YouTube videos that never made it here because I didn't have the time to edit it or put it together or whatever. And so that footage just ends up getting deleted. I don't want that to happen anymore. So I've been studying and learning, how can I make this simpler and make it true to what I really want? So I'm excited about all of it. I hope that you are here for it. And if it's not for you anymore, that's totally fine. I understand. But I wanted to share that little tidbit to explain and just to share with you where I am, to catch you up a little bit. I know a lot of that is very vague, but essentially just lots of challenging things happened 2.5 years ago, and it changed everything. And I just had to get my brain right again, and my spirit and my emotional state. I had to get it all right again before I could get back to this. But it's right now, and I'm excited. So I am glad you're here. Thanks for listening to the last little spiel, those of you that made it through. And I will see you next week on the podcast and in the future, very, very soon. I will see you in some other YouTube videos. I hope you enjoy and have a great day. Thanks for being here.